Overview of IT service management. You know, when you hear the term customer, you probably think of the guy renting a movie at Blockbuster, or a girl doing some online shopping, me waiting in line for some fast food, or a little boy screaming for the toy he wants in the aisle of a Target store. But with ITIL, we're going to expand the concept beyond just someone who buys goods or services. The customer of an IT service provider is a group or an individual who defines and agrees to the service level targets. Not sure what a service level target is? Well, that's okay. That's what this Nugget movie is for. But in a nutshell, a service level target is just a commitment from a service provider to a customer that gets documented in a service level agreement, or an SLA. In an organization, like a company or a nonprofit, a customer is also referred to many times as a user or an end user. And we'll look at how customers tie into service management in this nugget as we get an overview, a broad overview of information technology service management. In this CBT nugget, we'll get several firm definitions of what service management is according to the ITIL version 3. Then we'll look at services and quality. We'll break down organization and related policies. And then finally, we'll look at process management, a key aspect of IT service management. Now, right off the bat, I want to cover some key definitions from IT version 3 that you have to know that relate to service management. And the first one, of course, is services. But before I define services, let's talk about a product. For example, like a thermos. If you want to buy a thermos, you're typically going to go to the store, maybe go online, and assess the quality of the thermos that you want to buy. You want to check out its appearance, its color, how useful is it? How can that thermos be applied in all the different situations that you might need a thermos? Out at a baseball game or a football game or camping. As a customer in a store, either online or in a brick and mortar store, we have a very little opportunity to actually influence the quality of the product. Why? Because the product's already produced in some factory somewhere. The manufacturer is going to try to deliver pretty constant quality, effectively controlling the production plant. When it comes to this thermos, the manufacturer, the sales, and the consumption of this product are totally separate. However, services are really a lot different. These are often provided through total interaction with a customer. And again, a customer has a broader definition here. Think of a customer as somebody in your organization or your company who needs the resources or the services of information technology. IT services can be a lot of things. Things like network bandwidth, data storage space, monitoring services, reporting and logging services, security services, application development, product management, program management, or troubleshooting. A lot of things that go beyond just the typical product that's offered. And the quality of a service is not like a product. It depends in a way on how the service provider and the customer interact and communicate and share information and meet each other's goals. In contrast to manufacturing, the customer and the service provider can make modifications and changes all along the process as the service is being delivered. And it's how the customer perceives the service and what the service provider thinks that they're supplying that delivers the end result, the personal customer experience, and whether expectations are met, exceeded, or not met. So fundamentally, a service is a way to deliver value to customers by facilitating the outcomes that a customer wants to achieve without having to take on specific costs and risks that they deem to be unacceptable. And again, it's that ownership of cost and risk that is an agreement between the customer and the service provider. Now, another concept related to service is that of a service asset. And a service asset is defined as any capability or resource that can be provided by a service provider. So typically we think of assets or things that a company owns, like the workstations and the servers and the personnel and money in the bank and intellectual property, things like that. But a service asset is sometimes much more ethereal. So it's like any capability, any resource, either whether it be physical or logical or personnel related of a service provider, somebody who provides services. This could be either in-house or somebody that's outside of your organization, outsourced. So obviously if a provider has services and service assets, you need to be able to manage those services, either from the provider side or from the customer or end user side. And that's where service management comes in. Now think about it. Why does information technology exist in an organization? Well, almost across the board, IT is there to support the business in its activities of generating profit. Now, if it's a nonprofit, then it's the activities of meeting its organizational goals, its mission statement. And it does this by doing the things I mentioned earlier, providing those services, storing data, sorting data, making data available, mining the data, facilitating communications through networking, either wired or wireless, speeding up business activity, providing productivity tools like Microsoft Office, for example, improving the accuracy of repetitive functions, improving the consistency of repetitive activities, and then making it possible on a daily basis for creative solutions to generate profits or to more effectively and efficiently meet the mission statement of a nonprofit organization. And this is such a key aspect, and it's tied so closely to the business needs and the business goals that it must be managed effectively. So a fundamental definition of service management is a set or a group of specialized organizational capabilities or functions that provide value to customers in the form of services, not goods, but services. Now, essential to the providing of services is customer perception. I'm going to jot down here customer, because it's the customer expectations and requirements that tie closely into managing our services. Customers generally ask some questions to assess the quality of a service. Just like earlier, we had basic questions to assess the value of a thermos, for example. So when I screw the lid on the thermos and I turn it upside down, will it leak or will it not leak? That's something you look for in a thermos. Does it keep the liquid inside hot or cold? Is it impervious to being manhandled? Those are kind of questions that we ask of a product, but a service, a customer wants to know, will this service meet their expectations? Can they expect a similar service every time? If I go to a service provider, I want consistent service. If I'm going to somebody in my organization or outside of the organization to develop a software solution or a custom application, can I get similar service every time I go to them? And is that service provided at a reasonable cost? And so management is necessary to deliver those answers, first of all, to the customer, and then after that, to deliver the result that we promise to the customer. And that's where something called service level target comes in. I mentioned, I'll put SLT here. I mentioned service level target in the introduction, okay? This is that commitment to the customer. And this is typically documented in a service level agreement, SLA. And we're going to talk much more about service level agreements throughout this Nugget series. But we need these agreements to make sure that the IT service, that the design of the service meets the purpose, that it's a custom fit for that customer. And service level targets and agreements are based on some accepted standards, and we'll look at those. Now remember, ITIL is all about processes and frameworks and best practices. So this process of managing and delivering services from the provider to the customer has a life cycle. So since there is a life cycle of this process, we want to be able to manage that cycle. And this is basically an approach to IT service management that places emphasis on the importance and the value of coordination. and control of the process across all the various functions, all the various systems, and all the various processes to manage this full life cycle of information technology services. So this is in itself a huge discipline, and we'll talk more about this later, of course. Service management life cycle is going to consider several things, and most of these things happen to be, by the way, the books or the publications of ITIL, okay? Strategy, design, transition, operation, and continuous improvement. See how I did that? Okay, so this ties into those general books and publications. And of course, the person responsible for managing this end-to-end life cycle of service management is the service manager. And of course, that's your long-term goal if you decide to go beyond just the ITIL foundations, from the practitioner all the way up to the full-blown manager. The manager within the IT service provider. And this could be a business relationship manager, a process manager, an account manager, or all the way up to senior management with the responsibility of overall IT services, perhaps a chief information officer or a chief security officer, someone like that. Now, a big part of all of this management of service is making sure that the service that you deliver has quality built in, quality assurance, quality control. So let's look next at a very popular quality circle that gives us a step-by-step process. And this is called Deming's Quality Circle. Here's our buddy again, Dr. W. Edwards Deming, and he came up with this quality circle. It's all about quality, and quality is basically meeting or exceeding customer expectations. And Deming developed theories about the ability of systems to produce quality and the resulting changes in output quality that happen when modifications are made within the system. And he proposed a system of continuous improvement. And think of continuous improvement more in the sense of services rather than improving a product, like making a better thermos. Managers get input from workers and their peers to improve quality over time. So he developed a simple cycle called PDCA. So we've got P for plan, we've got D for do, we've got C for check, and we have finally A for act. And so we want to remember that. Now, remember the continuous improvement process, the circle is kind of running this way. So it's going clockwise. And the circle's moving across this line. And what we're shooting for here is managing and consolidating our improvements and then reaching continual quality assurance, continual quality improvement. Of course, this is our upward level of improvement or quality. And what we have right down here in this line, this is time. Okay, so obviously this process takes time. So first of all, we plan. This is step one. Planning involves designing or revising the business process components to improve the results. Then, secondly, we do. We put the plan into place. We put it into action. We implement it, and then we measure its performance. And then thirdly, we check. Okay, we assess the measurements and we report the results to the decision makers. And then finally, the fourth step is to act. We decide upon the changes we need to improve the process, and we put them into place, and we make the improvement possible. And of course, this is a continuous process that goes on over and over and over as this circle moves from plan to do to check to act, and over and over and over, based on our service over the course of time, we get quality assurance, QA, and we get constant improvement. As we sit here and reflect upon Deming's quality circle, let's think about some of the things that we mentioned in the previous Nugget movie, some of the things that Dr. Deming said. Remember, quality management, quality assurance, meeting and exceeding the customer's expectations is the responsibility of everyone in the organization who's providing that service. And every employee has to know their contribution to the process, to the quality of the work, and to the effects of delivering quality services. Quality management also means continuously seeking out opportunities to improve the organization and put those things into place. This is also a policy matter. So this should happen at the top. Okay, this is part of our, that's an O, this is part of our policy, and it should flow down from decision makers to upper management to middle management all the way down